Well, welcome. It's James here, the dad and DM for the Every Tenday campaign, and we've been on a little bit of a short break for a couple of weeks. We haven't been broadcasting or streaming, and basically, I just want to make sure we are technically set up here. There we go. Basically, we've been getting everything ready for the end of this first campaign, campaign one, and getting things ready, a little bit more polished, ready for campaign two that we're hoping to start in around about January, February next year. It'll be probably late January to early mid-February next year that we'll be wrapping up campaign one and looking ahead to our second campaign with Charlotte and with Finley. It is mind-blowing to us. We were just talking about this last weekend. It is mind-blowing to us that come January, it will have been 3 years since we started this. You know, Every Tenday came out of a dream of mine. When I was 10 years old, I was introduced to Dungeons & Dragons through the Red Box, the basic set from, 1984, 5, sometime around then. It got released for the very first time. And my brother bought it. My brother's a couple of years older than me. He may even be watching this. Hey, bro, how you doing? And he bought that box set and we started playing, and my life was never the same again. Out of that very first game that we played, the very first character that I ever rolled was Nimblefoot, the character who has cropped up quite a lot during this campaign with my kids. That was, more than 30 years ago. Long time ago. 37 years ago. First character I rolled, Nimblefoot, the thief. And Nimblefoot still crops up, and my life was never the same again. Because D&D didn't just... For me, it was never just a game. It was a way for me to explore things and to have adventure in the humdrum of everyday life as a 10-year-old kid. You know, living in, not the best areas and all this kind of thing. And so D&D for me and for my brother was the perfect escape. And it was a chance for he and I to weave wonderful stories together. And then when we grew up and we left home, for both of us pretty early, our lives continued as just continued to unfold. And so decades passed before I went on to have kids. The two children that they're not kids anymore. That's the thing. The two teenagers that you're now used to in the Every 10-Day campaign and podcast. And, I had a little idea in my mind that when Finley, my youngest, was 10, that I would introduce Dungeons & Dragons to them. That was the age that I'd come to D&D. And I got to tell you, I had a little bit of anxiety. I had a little bit of worry about it because I thought, well, what if they don't like it? What if it doesn't become as meaningful to them as it has been for me my entire life? What if, they don't fall in love with this game, with this storytelling? What if it doesn't impact them in the same way? I needn't have worried. So in January 2019, I hadn't bought 5th edition at that point. And I introduced 2nd edition, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons to them. We rolled up 2 characters, a wizard and a paladin. And that was Danae, played by Charlotte, and Elwyn, played by Finley. And they loved it. Now, within just a couple of months of starting to play, literally just a few games, we switched. I found out that there was this thing called 5th edition. I didn't know that the editions had kept churning out. I shouldn't have been surprised though, right? We converted the characters over and we continued to play. And we have not looked back. Now, in those early games, Charlotte, at the time, was keeping her own personal journals. And she said, Daddy, can we record the games? Record the audio of the games because I want to create a journal. I want to keep track of what's going on and create my own journals of what's happened in our games. So we started recording the audio of them. And we even have the recordings of some of those first few games. But it wasn't until April, it wasn't until about 3 or 4 months later that we actually started to put it out as a podcast. And the reason we did that was simple. To me, D&D has always been something that for me has started with family, not with friends. It's often publicized as a game for friends, to bring friends together and for friends to play with their group of friends. And I've played it a lot with my friends in my teenage years. And for me, it always started with family. It brought me and my brother closer than ever before. It has brought me closer to my kids than ever before. I don't live with my children. They don't live with me. I see them every 10 days, hence every Tenday. It's also handy that Tenday is a unit of time used in the Forgotten Realms. So you can see how we came up with that. But because they don't live with me, my time with my kids is precious. And whilst we used to have great fun gaming, going to the cinema, mucking about together and all that kind of thing, nothing has brought us closer during the long weekends that we get, just a couple of times every single month, than Dungeons and Dragons. And I had a crazy idea. I thought, well, what if our game inspires even just one other parent or one other kid to want to play with their parents, or vice versa, if it's a parent wanting to play with their kids. I said, why don't we put our game up online? We might get a listener, that might be kind of cool. Never thinking that anything would ever come of it. So we started the podcast in April, May time, 2019. And whilst we are far, far from a global phenomenon or anything like it, we've certainly been able to reach way more people than we ever thought we would. And that's thanks to you. We really appreciate you watching us. We really appreciate you listening to us. And to have even impacted and reached the people that we have is mind-blowing to all of us. And, it's still something that blows my mind when I do a search in Apple Podcasts and type in D, D little lowercase n and then D&D, or D ampersand D. When I do a search for those in the podcast, like ours comes up in the top 10 all the time, and sometimes we're number one, and it's crazy to me. It's something that we never thought could even happen. So, last time that the kids were with me, last time Finley and Charlotte were here, we had the closest you could have to a kind of a team meeting. And I said, look, while we're going to talk for the next 5-10 minutes, don't think of me as your dad. Which I try to encourage them not to do when we're playing anyway, because it's a chance, it's my game too. I'm playing the game too, and I'm enjoying it. And I don't want to be playing under the same boundaries that I might as their father. And I said, but for this meeting, just forget that I'm your dad for a second. Let's just talk about what this could be, what we could do with this podcast. I said, because we're at a level now where we could stay here. We could just stay here nicely as a sort of a little hobby channel, or we could take our stories out there more. We could really share these stories and share this world and share these characters with more people. And between the three of us, we unanimously agreed that might be something that would be good to do, but without losing ourselves to so many sort of money-making aims. Fortunately, when I'm not playing D&D, I run an online training company, so I don't need to do this. I don't need to play the game to sell merchandise or sell books or any of that kind of stuff. But we all agreed it would be really cool if we could take this a little bit further, if we could share a bit more. And so with that in mind, we've done the first in a series of multiple little baby steps this last 20 days or so since we last played. Firstly, we've smartened it up a little bit. So this shot that you're looking at now, this frame, if you like, this is going to be the new position and camera that we're going to be using. We've got better lighting and better stands and better cameras for filming Charlotte and Finley while you're watching us, so that it's hopefully a slightly more pleasurable experience to view. We know that many of you have us on in the background while you're doing other things, and certainly that's the way that I listen to Dungeons & Dragons podcasts. But we wanted to make it something that maybe is a little bit nicer to look at than how we have been shooting it. So we're making just a few to begin with, baby steps, and we may be building on these, especially in the run-up to the second campaign. So Join us this coming Saturday at 12 p.m. UK time. So that's a little bit earlier if you're one of our overseas friends or one of our overseas family. We're going to be starting kind of early with our stream of episode 123, this coming Saturday at noon, starting at noon. Our characters, Danae and Elowyn, along with Kilgar, the dwarf, have arrived in Karatur, the eastern region of the continent of Horizon, in their search for Mistrider, the legendary monk who is in possession of the Time Stone, the Time Gem, with a view to seeing whether they can request a mote of possibility to be able to return to the present day after their quest back in time, back through the corridors of time, to see if they can stop the evil spread of enervancy that comes from Eurishnik, the evil artifact. See if they could prevent Eurishnik from ever being corrupted, ever being twisted and turned into an evil artifact. And so, to do so, they are returning to the source. They're going back in time to see what they can do about it. That all beginning with the trials of the Ninja Mountain this coming Saturday at 12 in episode 123. And we will see, won't we, what our characters get up to. Firstly, they've got to get up the Ninja Mountain, passageway that is only given to those who have passed the trials of Quan, the Redeemer, who has blessed the entire mountain top. So let's see what happens this coming Saturday. I really look forward to seeing you. Charlotte and Finley will, I know, be really delighted to see you there. In the meantime, please feel free to join our Discord, where we have a small but tight family of followers and friends, family really, who are there. And we often go on the Discord after our games to answer questions, hear what you might have done, hear your suggestions and listen to what you have to say about what has just transpired, and also be there to sometimes answer your questions and maybe even give you a few spoilers of what's to come if you're into that kind of thing. So look, thank you so much if you're watching this, for tuning in since we started streaming on YouTube. YouTube is actually the first place to go to get the most recent episodes, because we stream it live, whereas with the podcast, we obviously upload that over time, so that usually doesn't appear on the podcast platforms for quite a few days after we've played. So if you want to be there for the first games, make sure that you're here on YouTube for them. Make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel. That way you'll get notifications when we are about to go live. We cannot wait to see you on Saturday. Big love to you, and we will see you then. All right, bye for now.